Good morning, 8th graders. This is your first set of doodle notes so far for this year. So I wanted to make sure that I gave you a little how-to on my expectations for doodle notes because I know that in years past, other teachers have had different expectations, so I want to make sure you know mine. So this was a part of whole group, so hopefully you completed that. Your doodle notes are a total of 3 pages today. So here is how I like to go about it. So my first expectation is that you interact with the vocabulary. And all of the vocabulary can be found in these little boxes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm just going to highlight my vocabulary. So I have rock cycle, igneous rock, sedimentary rock, metamorphic rock, weathering, erosion. Technically, we break weathering down into chemical weathering and physical weathering, sedimentation, melting, crystallization, deformation. Okay, so I highlighted all your key terms. So hopefully you are following along with that. Now, when we are looking at our vocabulary, we're not just looking at the vocabulary, we're also looking at the definition. Now, I want you to go through and I want you to highlight your definitions in like as minimal words as possible, but enough for you to remember. So how I remember the rock cycle or the 3 different types of rocks is going to be totally different than maybe how you remember it, because this may be your first exposure versus I've been teaching this for way too long. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through this entire first page of how I would do this to meet Miss G's expectations. Okay, so rock cycle. This is the process of rocks being formed, wearing down, and being formed again over long periods of time. So I'm going to go through. This is rocks being formed, wearing down, and being formed again. Okay, and I love the fact that this is a long period of time. Okay, now let's see if I get this closer, will you be able to see the green? Okay, so that we classify rocks based off of how they form. All rocks can become another type of rock if they experience, and then you have these key terms. So heat, pressure, compaction, melting, cooling, solidification, which we called crystallization, weathering, erosion, and cementation. So use the words above to doodle and describe how each rock is formed inside the arrow. We'll come back to that. Let's keep going through our vocab for igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. So, a type of rock that forms when melted rock cools and hardens. Cools and hardens is the biggest thing we need to understand with igneous. Sedimentary, a type of rock that forms when particles of another rock settle and are pressed by gravity. So, particles of other rocks settle and are pressed by gravity. Okay? You may need to highlight more, but don't highlight the whole definition. I'm not going to expect you to be able to rattle me off this exact definition. A type of rock that forms when a previous existing rock experiences intense heat and pressure. So intense heat and pressure. Okay? Now, I would take a pause here. I would go through. I would read all of your definitions, highlight those because you will need to interact with those definitions as well. But I'm not doing your work for you. So I'm just going to stick to this front page. Okay? Now, the next thing we're going to have to know or do in order to make this meet my expectations is you are going to have to go through and kind of see where are my questions? What am I being asked to do on each page? So for the first one, So I'm just going to put a little asterisk saying this is something I need to do. Okay, so this is a task. So in here, it says give some examples. It's asking for examples of chemical or physical weathering. So I'm going to put a little asterisk there. Down here, you'll notice that a lot of what it's asking you to do seems to be in very small print. Okay, doodle the key words from the definition in the space above. So there's another what you need to do. Okay, and then here, add some detail. Okay, so you need to define what happens when crystallization happens and it cools slowly, and what happens when it cools quickly. Down here, draw and label at least one type of fault. Okay, this one might be a little more challenging. Design and label Earth's crust folding. I would refer back to your metamorphic notes. So I am just going to put a little note here for myself, for you, whatever. So look at metamorphic notes. Okay, in order to answer these, because I know I gave you pictures of these in the metamorphic whole group notes. Okay, so all of the pink is things that you have to do. So for this one, use the words above to doodle and describe how each rock is formed inside the arrows. So this one is referring to igneous rocks. So we need to use some of these words. So with igneous rocks, I know that we are going to have to talk about melting, cooling, solidification. So I'm going to write something along the lines of melted rocks. And then because I know some extra keywords and so do you, magma or lava, cool, and solidify / crystallize. Okay? Either quickly or slowly. Okay? So I'm going to write that. I'm also going to draw a little doodle. Now, for me, I've always told you guys, the way that I remember igneous rocks is because of volcanoes. Okay? So I'm going to have my volcano. Okay? And then you also have the magma chamber. Okay? I'm not looking for your best artistic ability. What I'm looking for is just what is your thought process. So now I can mark solidification, melting, and cooling off of my list. Sedimentary rock. Well, when I go through here, I'm going to need compaction, weathering, erosion, and cementation. Okay? So, a type of rock that forms when particles from another rock settle and are pressed by gravity. So we know that sedimentary rocks happen when a parent rock is exposed to our elements and we call this erosion. They transport, collect, compress, and cement together. Okay, so I have used weathering, compaction, erosion, and cementation. Okay, for me, it's those itty bits and pieces. So, however you want to draw that, these are my amazing doodles that always help me with sedimentary rocks. Okay, so that leaves heat and pressure for our metamorphic rocks. So we have parent rocks, deep underground, being compressed with extreme. There's another E. Heat and pressure. Okay, so for me, you have your rock, you have it deep underground. This is my ground. And you have this pressure, and then you have heat. Don't judge me. This is just what's happening in my brain. Rock. Pressure. Okay? So, however your brain imagines this, it doesn't have to look like mine. But remember, you're doing this on each page. So yes, I went through this one, but you need to go through all of these. Okay? Awesome. Now, the final expectation is I do expect you to color things that are of importance. I don't need this whole page colored, but I need things colored that are important. So I am going to go through and I am going to, as soon as I get my markers and whatnot out of my bag, because do you think I'm 100% prepared? But I'm going to go through and I'm going to color the things that truly matter, that are going to help me remember these definitions just a little bit more. So I'm going to take like my red and I'm going to make sure that I color in my magma and my lava. Okay? So that I don't have a brown. So we're just going to pretend like our volcano is like a Tafiti sort of volcano. Okay? So that, my sediments, God, I really wish I had better colors. But my ground, because this is our surface, heat and pressure, well, heat involves that. And maybe I'm going to go through with this. Okay. Things along those lines. Now, I would have a much better, I don't even have anything good in my fine tip. Golly, y'all. So, but I'd go through there. Maybe I am going to, igneous rocks to me tend to stay more red in my brain. So, I'm going to do that. And then maybe I then color in one of these arrows red. Okay? I'm not here to judge how you do things, but I need to see you interacting with your notes. Okay? So, you are going to need vocabulary and definitions interacted with. All of your questions answered to the best of your abilities, and as well as coloring and interacting with your notes. I don't need the entire notes page colored, but it needs to make sense. So I've basically done the first page with you. You need to make sure that you complete the last two. Okay, remember for this one, you're going to need to refer back to your metamorphic notes. Okay, if you have any questions, please ask your teachers, but these are my expectations. Awesome. If you have any questions, like I said, ask us. Thanks, guys.